At When We're Not Hustling, we believe that seeing sex workers as full people outside of our work is an essential step towards humanizing and destigmatizing the industry and those who work within it. Help us to bring you the stories of the people behind the fantasies. When We're Not Hustling is a 501c3 fiscally sponsored nonprofit project of the Social Good Fund. Thank you for considering a tax-deductible recurring contribution. All contributions will be received through our fiscal sponsor, the Social Good Fund. You can contribute at nothustling.com. Thank you so much.
Put away the lingerie. I want to know you. Tell me more. I don't care about the news. I'd rather hear about you and see the world from your point of view. The coffee's already made, so I probably should just pull up a chair and tell me more.
Welcome to When We're Not Hustling, a podcast where sex workers talk about everything but. I'm your host, Jessie Sage. When We're Not Hustling is a weekly podcast that explores the lives and identities of sex workers outside of our work personas, our personal philosophies, ambitions, families, relationships, passions, spirituality, and so much more. We talk about our lives beyond the job, asking, what does the flexibility of sex work allow us to do, and who does it allow us to be? On this show, we learn who sex workers are outside of the work we're known for. When We're Not Hustling is an exploration of the people behind the fantasies. When We're Not Hustling is powered by Black Venom Digital. Black Venom Digital is a collaboration between myself and industry veteran Mr. Black Venom. Black Venom Digital aims to provide adult professionals and entrepreneurs with professional-grade web design, graphic design, and branding services that will inspire growth and success. At Black Venom Digital, we empower companions, creators, and entertainers with professional web design and branding. If you're looking for a new website or any other branding services and you work in the adult industry, please find out more at blackvenomdigital.com. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of When We're Not Hustling. I'm your host, Jessie Sage. Today I have on my friend, Courtney Trouble, who has been a longtime friend of mine. We used to work together at Peep Show. I don't know if those who listen to this are familiar with Peep Show, but if you're not, we did 100 episodes of Peep Show podcast from 2017 to about 2021. And Courtney was on it as a guest, but also Courtney during the pandemic worked really closely with my partner, PJ, and I, and sold ads for us for that, and also worked with me to have these casual episodes that were very fun as well. So they co-hosted some of Peep Show with me, and they also did a lot of the visuals when it was a magazine. Courtney is an artist, a really good artist. So it's fun to bring them back here to talk to me in the context of my new show. They're also working on a lot of new things. So that's our guest for today. I want to remind you that we have a website. It's nothustling.com. And on the website, if you're a sex worker who wants to join the show, you can go ahead and fill out the contact page and let us know what it is that you want to talk about on the show. Let me see. What else do I want to tell you about? Also, you can throw us some money because it costs money to run this show at patreon.com/sapiotextual. And if you have ideas for the show, if you have comments, you can always feel free to reach out. I answer all of my messages on DMs and email, and however you want to contact us. You can find us on all of our socials at Not Hustling Pod. So let me go ahead and introduce Courtney, and then we will just get right into the interview. Courtney Trouble started a queer porn revolution with NoFo, that's FAUXXX.com in 2002, when there was barely a .com going, and has been behind of and in front of pornographic camera ever since. They previously worked for On Our Backs, Girlfriends, and Bitch Magazine. They've also published in Autostraddle, Vice, and academic journals on visual culture. They were formerly a digital resident of San Francisco MoMA's Open Spaces, and their photo work has been published in Trans Bodies, Trans Selves, and on permanent loan at the Berlin Gay Museum. Courtney started NoFo as a 19-year-old model, porn performer, photographer, and web designer with the purpose of creating an indie porn site that was authentic, empowering, and all-inclusive. They also wanted the project to address some stereotypes in the adult industry and act as a tool for ladies, queers, and artists to explore the erotic and sexual side of creativity. So I am very excited to have Courtney Trouble on today, and I will go right into the interview. Hi, Courtney. It's so fun to see you again.
Oh my God. Hi, Jessie. It's been too long.
I've missed you. You were like my pandemic bestie. We did like so much work together over the pandemic.
I know it was kind of a dream in the wake of being able to be around people in person, to be able to really connect with you long distance.
Yeah. We did, for people who don't know this, like you were working with PJ and I on Peep Show with the podcast for a while, and helping me with like some of the fun parts of it, and also doing like the roundtables. But then we also made it a magazine, and you did tons of art for the magazine. That was really cool.
I loved getting a chance to take everything that Peep Show was doing on the podcast and like get a chance to like put it into the written word and like do more with all these amazing conversations that you facilitate.
Yeah, that's really
it was a lot of fun to be able to bring kind of all of these creative elements into like a world like created and crafted and nurtured by sex workers.
I know. It was amazing. It was such a neat time. And then the world opened back up again, and then things got busy. But it was a fun creative project during that year and a half.
I feel really strongly that like sex workers like need like customized news outlets in a way.
Yeah.
I feel like having our own news outlets is really powerful. And so that's like a really fun element of it too. It's just like being able to like tell stories that were important to us, like through our own lens.
Yeah. So for people unfamiliar with you, I don't know if there are people in our industry like that, but if there are, why don't you introduce yourself?
I am Courtney Trouble. I'm 41 now, but I started making porn when I was 17 or 18. So I've been doing this a long time. And one of the interesting things about me is that I've maybe in all of these 20 something years, I've been on a mainstream porn set once or twice.
Wow.
So
very
all my performances and productions have been virtually 100% self-made.
Yeah.
So in a way,
you're gonna go like studio, you go big and shoot with Angela White.
My one studio scene was with Angela White for Adult Times Shape of Beauty.
Yeah.
Like the year that she won her 4th Performer of the Year award.
Yeah.
So I reach big if I'm going to go into
You're like, if I'm going to do a studio, I need to be with the best.
Honestly, that just happened so organically. Because I met Angela White a few times at ABN, and just in passing would be like, hi. And she'd be like, oh my God, hi. She knew who I was. She's from the Australian like feminist porn world. Is actually where she got her toes wet in porn, was in like indie porn. So for her to know who I was didn't make sense at first, but like then she's like, no, I love you, I really love your work. She was like, NoFo is really important. And I'm like, how do you even know what NoFo is? Like NoFo, NoFauxxx.
Yeah, why don't you tell us what that is?
Was like the first porn site that I built and made artwork for. And like that was like back in 2002, and like it still exists, but it's undergone some name changes and different directional changes and stuff. So like for her to know what that was,
that's a long time.
Shocking. It was shocking.
22 years is a long time to do something.
It is. Yeah. I feel very blessed to have like found my calling at a young age, I think. And it wasn't so much porn. Like I feel like porn and like the sex work aspects of my photography work and my art like are obviously like the main topic. But like for me, the calling was both photography and making my own websites. And porn just kind of ended up being like where it went. But like started taking pictures when I was 9 years old. Like my dad got me this little Polaroid camera from Value Village, which is like a thrift store. It's like Goodwill. And so like my first picture I ever took was like a picture of my dad outside of the Goodwill doing a handstand.
Oh my gosh, really? That's cool.
Yeah. Like, so it's kind of like I was doing that. And then like when I was like 14, like it was like the mid 90s and like people were just getting online and like people were making little websites, like piecing HTML code together. And I was one of those people.
You can code, right?
Like, huh?
You code, right?
Yeah, I do. I code. I taught myself how to code when I was 14 just because I wanted to put out my poetry and meet people on the internet who were like gay and punk and weird. And like it all kind of wrapped into my music fandom as well. It was really, at the time, it was like Tori Amos, but like I went hard. So like I was building like Tori Amos like a fan website when I was like 14 years old.
Oh wow.
Really, I loved coding so much that I spent an entire summer of my teenage existence like in a hole, like in a computer hole.
Learning to code. I can't
just trying to code. Yeah, my goodness. And I've been there ever since. I've been in that hole ever since that summer. I love building websites. It's very like calming and creative, and and it got me. It got me to where I am today, which is I run a bunch of porn sites.
Yeah.
I guess that I also make the porn for. So that's kind of the cool thing.
I would say one of the favorite images that I have are the overlays that you did of my like kind of impromptu cam show for you. Do you remember that?
Oh my God, the pandemic photo shoots.
Yeah, it was so cool though, because you laid the videos over top each other and we like pulled some screen caps from those and some little GIFs from those. And those are really neat.
I enjoyed like trying to find a way to like engage with someone over the internet. Sort of, it like cannot compare to like being a photographer with and having people in front of you in person. It can't. But the art that we made, trying to like replicate that closeness, it did turn out really cool, didn't it?
Yeah, it was. It was fun. And there was something even like weirdly like intimate about it, even though like I had my webcam up and you had like a picture taking like, or a camera taking pictures of the screen. It was like a whole thing, but it was interesting. It was interesting.
I was trying to like take that extra step and be like, no, I want to be behind a camera on my end. I don't want to be at the computer just monitoring a cam show. Like,
right. Yeah.
Need to be able to, in the next lockdown, they'll find some way to like, be able to control movement or something.
This is kind of an aside, but how do you feel right now, especially as somebody who was like at very much like an early adopter about the direction that everything's going in regards to AI and
it's wild. I just saw someone post today that they're starting like a adult friendly chat GPT situation.
I saw that myself.
Having found ways to use ChatGPT already for what I need it to do. I'm like, okay, like that's I can get with that. Like if there's anything I don't want to do anymore is write the same press release over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. So I'm chill with that. I'm chill with all that. Also, like it's worth, when it comes to like the chat AI. I think it's worth remembering how much labor like we put into talking to our fans and like writing copy and just like writing blurbs for things.
Right.
So like I feel like, you know, being able to just use this opportunity to say, look at all the stuff we do.
Yeah.
Like now we need this product now because we are like, this is proof. We are writing press releases. We are like writing copy. We are like doing all this stuff as part of our business.
Yeah. What about though, like you as an artist who does things like make collages? Like, how do you feel? Like, are you worried about, or do you just feel like it could be a tool to make more stuff?
We're in a remix. We're in the remix culture right now. So and that's also where we're at with generative AI. Is also generative AI is not yet got to the point where it's coming up with new ideas and new styles and becoming its own artist.
Yeah.
That's going to be crazy and maybe cool. I don't know. I'm like in the middle on it because like, what I see now with like generative AI is that it's just remixing like other people's styles.
Yeah.
Even pulling things from other people's art very specifically. So right now it's just like part of remix culture and like that's like a larger thing. So like get a little bit like art historical here is that like you know, for a long time people have considered art to like have a singularity. So there's like an aura around a piece. So like the Mona Lisa is very special because not just because of what it looks like, but because of the object. It took a lifetime for the painter to paint the Mona Lisa. It's been taken from here to there. There's a story. This object, this painting of the Mona Lisa has been to so many places. There was underpaintings that people can't see that then become a part of the story. So like that's what, you know, the writer and philosopher and advocate Walter Benjamin is talking about when he's talking about what happens with digital replication is that the aura of the original object is lost. So, you know, he wrote that in the 1930s. I could be wrong. He wrote that in the 1930s. And so here we are 100 years later, and digital replication is our way of life. It's our way of understanding everything. Like we're having this conversation right now, and the people are going to hear it in multitudes recorded from this moment. And that thus kind of like erases the aura of the original conversation that we're having right now. But like, where we're headed right now is, and what we're going to have to grapple with as like humans, artists, and like for me in particular is like, okay, so if it's all digital replication and now we're to the point where digital generation is like, he wasn't even thinking about that. We went from the painting being like a human-made touch object, the painting, to a photograph, which is a representation. Of, and now to a generated image. Like, so you went from painting a flower, to taking a picture of a flower, to asking something to make you a flower.
Right. And that's what I've been seeing a little bit of. Like there was somebody on Instagram or something who was showing like small business owners, like if you're trying to advertise something, you can now like all these women's faces aren't real women. Like we created them out of, you know, X, Y, and Z. And yeah, I mean, that's really interesting, I think. And there's a part of me that's like, there's always a tech phobia anytime like something new happens. Like people were afraid when the written word became, you know, because you're going to lose the storytelling or whatever, you know? So
yeah, I mean, I was like thinking about like when the calculator was invented, because like the calculator puts numbers together and brings you an output that's logical. And like, it's kind of what ChatGPT does in a way, like,
but with words.
Yeah. So it's a new tool, and it was probably something we were able to do for a long time and just didn't do it.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. So I've been doing ketamine therapy for the last 3 months or something. It's been really, really interesting and really positive in my life. But one of the things I go through this company, and when I do it, I'm supposed to set intentions at the beginning through the app of like what I want to experience. And an interesting thing that I haven't talked about before is that
through the app.
Yeah. So
okay,
there's
continue.
an app. Yeah. So I've been doing it through this company called Mind Bloom. I'm not advertising them or anything, but it's been an interesting process. And you go through the app and for every session, you're supposed to have like an intention for like, what is it that you want to get out of this ketamine session? And you can put in like whatever you're working on, like psychologically or relationally or whatever. And then the interesting thing is that AI will respond to you and say, I could give you 3 more like more honed in intentions based on what you've said here. Are you interested in what we have to say, or would you rather just stick with this one? And there's something interesting. And I've always, because I'm a curious person, been like, yeah, sure. Tell me what you like have. And then they'll come up with 3 different things that I'm like, actually, I hadn't really thought about it that way. That's pretty interesting. And obviously I'm talking to a computer. It's like whatever program they're using. It's obviously like an AI thing, but they're taking like what I'm saying and then somehow thinking like, okay, so the people who've said this also are dealing with X, Y, and Z, and then give me that option to think deeper. And I've heard some people talking about this on like radio programs and things, not particularly about ketamine, but like about doing experiments like this with like the therapy options that are like Chat GPT things, where they're actually having like generative experiences, because even though they're talking to a computer, they're getting feedback that's like a mirror that allows you to think about things anew.
Well, I've done that too. Well, not with ketamine therapy, but I'm neurodivergent and was diagnosed recently.
Yeah.
And
I don't know anyone at this point who isn't. I've all the neurotypical people out of my life, but yes.
I mean, I haven't really. I already knew a few things about myself, but like really being able to call it autism has been like a tremendous movement forward for me. To just be able to say like, hey, like sometimes I don't get that. Okay, so like one of the things I don't get is therapy. Not like I get it. I understand it. I need it. I love it. I love therapy, but how do I approach it? What am I supposed to do? Like, is it a meeting? Like, are we talking? Like, do I ask questions or do I listen or do I just talk? Like, that's like the breakdown of like things I do not understand about the human experience that people do. And so I tried it and I went into Chat GPT and I asked the machine to give me a pre-therapy interview.
Okay.
So I'm going into a talk therapy session without knowing anything. Will you prepare me for the session by asking me a few questions?
Yeah.
So it gave me a pre-therapy interview, and it was really like ask me just like simple things like, how are you feeling today? Like what's been going on with you in the past few weeks?
Yeah.
And like what's coming up for you?
Yeah.
It's just like, okay.
Was that helpful?
It was extremely helpful. And I had already been doing therapy with the same therapist for a really long time. I was super curious about what other people do in therapy.
Yeah.
I'm like, approaching this like everyone else, or am I like being autistic about therapy too? I'm like, so the question that I prompted it to give me was so helpful that it's ingrained in my mind now. And before I go into therapy, I like think about my checklist and like,
I had a different problem in therapy, which is that I felt guilty as somebody who's like socialized female to like spend all this time talking about myself. And I would come out of therapy because what I tend to do is save up all the things that are going on in my life for my therapy session and then like turn on Zoom, because I do it on Zoom with my therapist. And then she comes on and she's like, hi, how are you? And I'm like, blah. And then like a whole like hour goes by and she chimes in every once in a while. But like, then all of a sudden I'm like, I didn't even ask her how she's doing. I've just been talking nonstop. And then I feel guilty about that. And I even had to go and tell her, like, I'm sorry. I'm very self-centered here. She's like, it's your therapy. You're supposed to be self-centered.
It's your therapy.
But it was hard. It felt very uncomfortable.
Would it help you to know that your therapist goes into her therapy session and does the exact same thing?
But no, that's really interesting. And that's what, like, I think that there can be some good uses for that. And then I also understand why some people are very, like, afraid of what is possible through AI.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely think like we're just sort of in the generative remix moment of everything. I think it's safe to say that what we are using right now has been around for maybe 10 or 15 years, and we're just now as consumers being introduced to it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm more concerned about what happens with like organic creation, which I think is like the next step of AI that we should be really worried about. Yeah. And also something is already happening. Things are happening right now with AI that are like tremendously not okay. Like the genocide is being helped, is being assisted by AI.
Right.
And that's really
like ecological really of it. And there's a lot of stuff.
Yeah. And, it could be just as dangerous as a weapon as like a nuclear bomb. So I think that's like the real stuff that's scary.
Yeah.
When it comes to, for me as like a lifelong artist and like sex worker and like porn person and like all of the ways in which like ChatGPT or like generative AI could like quote unquote fuck with my business, I see it being more helpful than hurtful at the moment as far as business goes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. AI in general, I think, is a lot scarier than what the little things that we're focusing on.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. So I want to ask you about the topic of the show, which we haven't gotten to yet. But first, I want to ask you, because I didn't know about your diagnosis. How do you feel about your diagnosis? And is it helping you kind of navigate your world better? Or?
I mean, it makes sense. And like the curious way in which it happened was, I was living alone in this cute little apartment in Berkeley, and I was kind of isolating myself a lot. And, my friends would like come and like check in on me. Right. So when my friends came over and we're just like having a really nice time, and it's just really nice to have friends over. And they were like, when was the last time you saw someone? And I was just I don't know. Like, I just don't really like, I forget to make plans or like forget to call people or whatever. And they said, it's like really interesting because when you are like, when you're out and about, you're really social and you go from person to person. And like, and I was like, yeah, like when I was younger, like fueled with alcohol for sure. Like it was to the point where I was very obnoxious. And my friend was like, yes, it was almost like you didn't know when it was time to like leave a conversation. And I was like, yeah, I've had, like, I remember that, like, I know that. And they were like, my friend's partner was there and she was like, I was diagnosed with autism earlier this year. I took a couple of these like tests that they give you. And I learned a lot about myself. And my friend, who had been friends with since I was like 20 or something, was like, have you ever taken the test? And I was just like, no. And it was like the second they left, I like took a couple of the tests on the internet, and it was just like, oh yeah, you're like moderately on the spectrum, like whatever. And then I brought it up to my therapist, and she was kind of like, I thought you were like aware of that. And I was like, I wasn't. I really wasn't.
It's interesting because PJ was recently diagnosed with autism too in the last year. And they went to their therapist and said, I'm curious why you think I'm not autistic, given like X, Y, and Z. And their therapist was like, what? I think you've misunderstood me. I just knew you were autistic, and I didn't think that was like the center of me. They're like, if I somehow gave you the impression that I don't think you're autistic. That's not the case, which was really interesting because then they had to think like, oh, wow, like you thought this the whole time. And their therapist responded in a way that was similar to yours, which is like, I kind of thought I thought that was a mutual understanding. Yeah.
It's a very interesting like way to, and now I feel more confident.
Mhm.
I feel like I'm like in awe of my strengths, and
Mhm.
also now like very aware of my masking. So,
Mhm.
and really seeing self-care as like allowing myself to just be autistic.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like,
Feel very freeing, huh?
yes, it is.
Yeah.
And, like, of course, like, it's just like for me, I just like encourage myself to like ask questions when I'm confused or like not catching a social cue or like, and especially like working from home, being a web designer, being an artist, like I had this very like moment in my mind when I went back to school, like when I went to grad school, like those first couple of weeks were really fun, but like I recognized how much of an outcast I felt. And like it wasn't even about like sex work or like my gender identity or anything, because like those were definitely wrapped up in my feelings of being weird in grad school.
Yeah.
But like there was like this added thing to it where I was almost just like, I never in a school, like, how do I school? Like,
Yeah.
I know how to learn, I know how to study, I know how to research, I know how to write, all that stuff's fine. How do
Yeah.
I how do I sit in a classroom with people next to me? When do I speak? Like when do
Mhm.
I not speak? Like those were like the things that I was like really struggling with in grad school,
Yeah.
despite being fully like in it. Like I was a really great student. There
Yeah.
was just where I was like, I don't actually know how these formalities work.
Yeah. Right.
And I think just being able to say out loud, I am neurodivergent. For me, I just need you to run me through these steps, A, B, and C, real quick,
Yeah.
so
Mhm.
that I can transition into this.
Yeah. Yeah. We've been
Uh,
doing a lot of that, like in my household, like relationally, because PJ and I would get in like all these fights. And then suddenly, like, they were saying things like, can you just tell me when you need something? Because I'm not picking up on it. Just tell me. And I'm like, oh, okay. And that doesn't feel like, I'm like, I think that's obvious, but they're like, I don't know what you like. That's not obvious to me. And then I have to like take a step back and be like, okay, this is how we need to like engage with these things. And that's been really helpful, actually.
yeah.
Yeah. When We're Not Hustling is brought to you by Assembly 4. Assembly 4 is a collective of sex workers and technologists working to bring the overall cost of sex work down through their advertising platform, Tryst.link. They also educate clients through the Good Client Guide and provide resources and articles written by and for sex workers. Assembly 4 caters to all genders and demographics and raises funds to fight for sex worker rights and against exploitation in the sex industry. Learn more at assembly4.com. ASSEMBLYFOUR.com. Thank you for listening to When We're Not Hustling. Please remember to subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you listen to your podcasts. Doing so will help other people find us. And if you're a sex worker who wants to come on the show and talk about your life outside of work, we would love to have you. Please send an email with more information to nothustlingpod@proton.me. Okay, so you were about to tell me that you do one party a year and you've been doing it for 15 years. So tell us a little bit about this party.
Oh my God. My sweet, sweet baby, Curly Beloved. So just I have to tell like a short memoir in order for us to
Go
get
ahead.
it's cute. I moved to San Francisco in 2005. And I had moved from Olympia, Washington.
Okay.
So in the early 2000s and like the 90s, like the place that I grew up was very much infused with punk rock music and feminism. The Riot Girl movement was basically like formed in Washington, D.C., and then immediately moved to Olympia, Washington.
Interesting.
So as a teenager, I was going to all ages shows all the time. Like pretty much every weekend, I would like get a really cheap bus pass to go up to Seattle,
Mhm.
from my hometown, Tacoma, Washington, and like go see live shows and bands and like go to little all ages dance parties and
Yeah.
stuff. So I'm really into live music and especially like feminist punk.
DJ and I
And
on our anniversary at the end of the month are going to Slater Kenny.
yeah,
It's on our anniversary.
I love Slater Kinney so much.
We're very excited. It's going to be fun.
They were one of the bands that I would get on a bus and go to Seattle and go see Slater Kinney,
Mhm.
La Tigra, the Butchies, Bratmobile, the White Stripes, like bands that never got famous, like the Need, all those people were very informative to me as a young queer. And I feel very lucky to have also been in the scene in Olympia, Washington, to the point where I got to meet people. Like I got to be a part of the music scene. And it was small, but it was full of like queer feminists and trans people and weirdos. And I was really happy.
Yeah.
I also started making porn in Olympia. So I started NoFo and the whole thing happened in Olympia. Like, my friends wanted me to take pictures of them. I wanted to take pictures. I wanted to be a porn star. I was doing phone sex.
Mhm.
And that's kind of the story that everybody knows about me. But then like while I wasn't hustling,
Yeah.
I was doing book shows every day. So I think the first event I put together was the Le Royale Erotique Extraordinaire,
Mhm.
which was a burlesque review, like a feminist punk queer trans burlesque review,
Okay.
that happened in the small town of Olympia, Washington. And it happened like they had little festivals there and stuff too. So like Homo a Go Go was like the big one that I got involved in. So kind of immediately when I moved to Olympia, like I was looking for ways to be involved in the music scene and like nightlife. And I found this poster that was literally like looking to make friends, like come plan Homo a Go Go with us. We were gonna do a rock and roll film art festival here in Olympia. And I was like, okay, I'll go. So like I went to the planning meeting and like met some of the people that I still work with to this day, like my best friend Jerry Lee. Like I met, as like a little 18-year-old queer baby dyke, like looking for friends in Olympia. Neurodivergence, hello, oh my God.
Yeah.
I found people who shared my special interest in feminist and just kind of dove right in. So basically, ever since I was 18, on top of like doing the porn and sex work stuff, I've always been doing shows.
Yeah.
I was in a band called Who's the Lady? And we had I was doing 808. So I play guitar, I play keyboards, and I play the drums. And I'll play any instrument you put in front of me. So in that band, it was an 808. So literally like a drum machine where you're like, doot, 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 doot. Awesome. And we would always just have these little shows and events, and I was out all the time. So when I moved to San Francisco, things kind of veered more towards the porn and art because that's kind of why I moved to a city.
Yeah.
From a small town. Was I was making porn in Olympia, and I basically worked with everyone in Olympia who wanted to make porn, and there was like 10 of us, and I was like, okay, now what? I gotta go. I gotta get out of here. I gotta go somewhere bigger, better. So I went on tour with a musician. I've toured as a musician. I've toured as a burlesque dancer. And ended up in San Francisco and just met a bunch of rad people in the scene that I loved here. And also was like, there's enough people here to try and make queer porn here. I moved here virtually for queer porn. And like, that was then the movement happened, and the queer porn movement happened, and then my life from 2005 to 2015 was like work, movie, trouble films, let's do this, and like that's the stuff that like everyone really knows about. Locally, I was still in bands. I was in a band called the Divine Feud.
That's a cute name.
Yeah, it's the Divine Feud is Joan Collins and Betty Davis.
Okay.
So it was like based off of the Hollywood Babylon, I
Yeah.
guess. The idea of like women fighting was like the name of our band. Of course, so I finally got to be in a feminist punk band, which was like, I had been watching all these shows for so long, and then finally I got to be in it. The Divine Feud was like short-lived, maybe like 2 years, but we recorded.
That's cool. Yeah.
We had like a very small EP that we never put out because my drummer didn't want to go on tour. Me and the guitarist wanted to go on tour, but the drummer didn't want to go on tour. She just wanted to play the same house party every weekend.
Okay.
And we didn't want to play the same house party every weekend.
Yeah.
So my band inevitably broke up because we wanted to like take the show on the road, and like our I love her so much, but she's like, no, I just want to.
So you had a feud.
Yeah, we did. We did have a little feud. It was divine.
It was divine. Yes.
It was divine. So I made a little bit more music after that, but then I got into DJing.
Okay.
So like kind of like it was like the indie sleaze. It's crazy how my life has now become nostalgic moments in time now. Because like I just DJ'd a gig last month, and it was like an indie sleaze throwback night. And I was like, okay, yeah, I know all these songs. I wasn't prepared for the 21-year-old to come up to me and ask me, what was it really like back then? What do you mean? It was 2010. And she's like, yeah, that was 24 years ago. And I'm like,
that's so wild. Yeah. They're like, I wasn't born then. I don't know.
I've been a DJ for 20 years.
Yeah.
That's like, I don't even know how that happened.
Yeah.
And I think it's just because I've taken so many breaks.
Yeah.
But I like the being in the bands, DJing. It's like all the stuff that I love so much. It's kind of like in my life now has finally become my other job.
Yeah.
Like, but it's taken this long since like 2005 or whatever to sort of like, because the queer porn movement was so big.
Right. That kind of took over your life for a while, huh?
Completely took over my. Yes, like this is what what everyone knows was my 24/7 for at least 15 years.
Right.
What you see is what you get. I was making movies, like that was my life 24/7.
Does it feel good to like open up space for more creative endeavors that aren't just porn right now?
It's so important. Yeah. I mean, and it's actually nothing wrong with porn. I think I've become even more of a porn advocate as things go on.
Yeah.
And when I say I'm a porn advocate, what I advocate for is I think that people should watch porn. I advocate for everyone, every adult, go watch porn, find out what you don't like, find out what you like, have your feelings about it. But I am advocating that you go watch that shit, because if you're not watching it, what the fuck are you talking about? And that's my argument. Is like, I am going to advocate that everyone know what porn is, watch it, look at it, know it, love it, hate it. Just like familiarize yourself with it. Don't be an idiot. Like be porn literate.
Yeah, right. I got kids that. I was like, this is what porn is. These are performances. This is what you can fit. Like, learn.
Yeah. And then on top of that, whatever your feelings are, like if you can't go through that process of watching and in like fully understanding what pornography is, how could you then say like, I feel like it's obviously a necessary tool for some people
Yeah.
to achieve orgasm or to
Yeah.
even achieve arousal. So,
Yeah.
like, not put it off as something that's not important because it is.
Yeah.
So I am an advocate for porn. I'm an advocate for watching porn.
Yeah, so I will always say that like our work that we do is life affirming and life giving and very important. And I will always like say that. It's for a lot of people, I think, in my experience, for a lot of people, it's life saving
Yes.
because
Life affirming,
life affirming,
life
life
choosing.
saving. I think that our sexuality is very core to who we are. And if that is repressed and shamed and pushed aside, that has really real consequences on people's lives. And I think there should be healthy outlets for sexuality.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. That being said, editing porn for 15 to 20 years can be kind of mind numbing and boring.
Yeah, yeah.
There's no dialogue. I feel like I'm going to get Alzheimer's if I just keep editing porn with no dialogue for the rest of my life. I'm not going to like fire off any new things in my brain. So I kind of
becomes what's like very stimulating to other people as audience members, like when you're doing it day in and day out, is like becomes kind of numbing.
Yeah, and well, I'm like nobody's watching porn front to back, like in slow to make sure that the edits are correct. Like it's excruciating.
Yeah,
excruciatingly boring. Which is probably my most pro porn stance I could come up with too. Is like if it's so boring to edit porn, I don't know why so many people are having problems with it. It's just people bumping uglies. I don't get it. Like,
so tell me, so you're DJing, but like, tell me what this like big party is that you throw every year.
I mean, like I have like for me, like that. It's like I have to be like stimulated. Like, so one thing I've learned about my autism, and like just to like bring it back to like the brain for a second, is like music has consistently flossed my brain in the most fantastical, positive ways. Like it feels like exercise to me. Like some people run a mile and they feel exuberant like afterwards. Like I DJ, if I don't get like a full hour to DJ, I will walk away from the machine just like like completely like pent up, high on life, need more, not done yet, unsatisfied. Like music just does that to me, to my brain. So like not only have I been DJing or playing music, but like I've been going out for a long time.
Yeah.
I got sober in 2011. I haven't picked up an alcoholic beverage since 2011, but that hasn't stopped me from going out like at all. I love dancing. I have to go out. Like something about being overstimulated by like sounds and people. It's why you will always see me at the AVN Awards. Always.
Yeah.
Like I am attracted and addicted to like loud spectacles. So San Francisco Pride is like the biggest, the loudest, the busiest, the most crowded, the craziest. It's like 5 million people in a very small city.
Yeah, yeah.
Tourists come here like with their little rainbow flags and necklaces, everything, just to be here. Like for the party, like the big party in San Francisco Pride.
Yeah.
It's also deeply political. We have a DIY operated and run trans march every like Friday of that week.
Okay.
And then the very next day, we have an independently owned and organized Dyke March, which is world famous. Like it is the Dyke March.
Okay.
So San Francisco has this incredible legacy of pride programming. Now, when I was, younger in my 20s, in the thick of it, 15 years ago, we were always trying to get into the biggest parties, most expensive. They're also expensive. Just like these broke little queers, like trying to be a part of the big thing.
Yeah.
So before I started my own party, we would be sneaking into bigger parties, like climbing over fences, right? Like really, or like doing like little, like lick and stick with the stamps. Like I've been sneaking into like pride raves for some time, but like in 2009, I got over it. And I was like, I'm going to throw my own party. So I threw a party in my backyard. And like had some DJs and some bands play, just like friends, friends.
Yeah.
And it was fucking fun. Like it was really fun. And I was just like, okay, so we're having like this backyard party. Like we're not giving money to any of the like corporate pride organizations or anything like that. Like this is our party.
Yeah.
So 2009, 2010 being what they were for me, I was not able to have a house party in 2010.
Okay.
They put me on the cover of SF Weekly, that Pride of 2010, as a queer icon of the Bay Area.
Yeah, wow.
And because of the porn, because of queer porn. So like in between 2009, the backyard party, and 2010, the queer porn happened.
Yeah.
Like it just blew up.
Right.
So I was on the cover of like the local weekly alternative paper, SF Weekly. And I was like, I can't have this party in my backyard. I will burn down my house. Like I have too many friends right now. Quote unquote friends, right?
Too many people are going to party. Yeah.
So I reached out to a local bar called El Rio. They had like this big, beautiful balcony. Like outdoor space was awesome. It was kind of like a bigger version of my backyard. And this is like in the Mission District in San Francisco. So it really wasn't far from my house either. So I called up my friend who ran El Rio and was like, what would it look like if I threw my backyard party in your backyard? And she was like, okay. And we're like, let's make it $5 so like everyone can come, because like these pride parties are like $45, $50. Like that's not feasible for real queer people. We're all broke. Slim. So I threw it at El Rio and we got 900 people in the door.
Wow.
Like the first year.
Yeah.
So then at the end of the party, Dawn looks over at me and she was like, see you next year. And like, that's how traditions are born. So Queerly Beloved was born in 2009 in my backyard, but it quickly turned into an annual DIY underground queer pride alternative party that was at El Rio for 10 years.
That's amazing.
Every single year until 2019. And it was a way for me, and this is kind of like the point of it all, really. And especially now that, like, you know, in 2019, the pandemic locked us, like, we didn't do anything in 2020. Anything in 2021. Even, you know, 2022, I didn't do it. So I took 3 years off to the point where, like, I didn't think anyone would even remember the party. But like what it's all about for me, especially now, like all this time later and having the queer porn movement come and go and return, is to be able to bring queer musicians and DJs and queer sex workers and porn performers and sexy personalities together into the same room, and together in such a way that you start to see how they overlap.
It's also like integration of your parts of your life.
Yes, it is. And bringing it back to therapy, this is the integration of all of my loves. And it's like a way of not doing sex work full time. Well, I do sex work full time. I'm a full-time sex worker. It's what it is. You know, like my brain I'm not physically engaged 24 hours a day, but there's like my life is porn.
I'm a full-time sex worker. I run a couple of other things, but I'm a full-time sex worker.
Full-time sex worker.
More money,
But to be able to have a second endeavor, another endeavor, and also for that endeavor to be something that speaks so true to my soul in the same way that queer porn does.
Yeah.
you know,
Different
feels
people,
like
maybe.
it feels like a positive move forward for like someone who's been pretty much tied to one thing for a really long time.
Oh, yeah.
You know? Like being able to be now when I go out and I have a DJ gig, like plenty of people are like, "Who are you? What's your name?" I got introduced as Courtney Love twice last month.
You're like, thanks.
What? Okay, that hasn't happened since high school, but all right.
Yeah.
Because my name is Courtney, so I always
Right,
have a problem. Um, it's really, really cool to just be the DJ sometimes.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
like, you know, with the Queerly Beloved, like the big event. So,
Mhm.
there was like the ones that El Rio brought in, they could cap at like 450 people. But when I came back, I came
Mhm.
back as big as I possibly could.
Mhm.
Um, I got the biggest venue in San Francisco that I could handle.
Yeah.
Um, it caps at 1,800 people.
My gosh.
Yeah. And I DM'd a very famous friend and wanted to just checked in and was like, "Hey, Peaches, do you think you could do a pride party with me?" And she said, "Great timing. Let's do it."
Mhm.
So I got to come back with Peaches, who's just like world renowned, international, underground, queer, trans superstar.
Mhm.
Like she's known for like Fuck the Pain Away, the Teaches of Peaches, like Boys Want to Be Her. She's like a penultimate, like outspoken, like queer feminist, and like being able to bring back Really Beloved, like
Yeah.
with a mission statement like that, where
Yeah.
she's like, no, this is about trans rights.
Yeah.
This is about feminism. This is about blending porn and music. This is
Yeah.
about your community. This is about outspokenness.
Yeah. Mhm.
Like, this is about independence and liberation.
Yeah.
Like, it all kind of came back together when, like, I could have easily taken that 3-year break and just been like, okay, well,
Yeah.
I threw a legendary queer porn pride party for 10 years. Awesome.
Yeah.
But now it's been 15. And
Wow. That's amazing. What a beautiful thing though to be able to bring all of that together.
yeah,
Yeah.
this last one was really fucking awesome. Like we didn't have Peaches. We booked a much smaller act. This band called Pixel Grip, who's from Chicago, and like, they've done a couple tours and they have an album out, but like they're still fresh. And
Mhm.
so it was a lot harder to promote and get this year's Queerly Beloved
Yeah.
off to a good start, especially when like we have such a bigger venue.
Yeah. Mhm.
It's just like, oh my God, it's like a whole other mountain to climb.
Mhm.
Um, but I went from being isolated in a really small apartment in Berkeley all by myself back to this
Yeah.
and more like bigger than I ever thought.
I mean, I
And
think that one of the things that you're saying that is, I think the upshot of what you're saying to me that I want people to get out of the episode, and especially younger people who are in the industry, is two things. One is that, like, it is important to have things outside of work that also feed your spirit and feed your soul in some way. And especially if you expect some sort of like longevity in the industry, which like both you and I have had at this point, we're still around. And the other thing that I think is really important is that, like, when you were lacking things, when there wasn't like queer porn in the way that there is now, when you didn't feel like you had community, when you were isolated, you created that. And we
yeah,
can create that for ourselves. Like, we can create that community and we can create those projects. And I think that that's a really important message for folks.
yeah, I think so too. Being able to, and like, that's partially the reason why some people get into sex work
Mhm.
is because they want to nurture their artistic
Yeah,
or creative
absolutely.
endeavors.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or maybe it's not artistic at all. Maybe it's not a creative venture at all.
Mhm.
Maybe it's a business venture. Like, but for, doing sex work and like having this whole path, kind of made it more possible for me to nurture those
Yeah.
things. Because I can't help but think like how many corporate jobs would I have actually like gone through by now.
I can't even imagine that. To
I
be
think about
honest,
this
for
all the
myself,
time.
I can't imagine either.
Okay, you want me to quit sex work and you're going to send somebody who doesn't know they're autistic into the workspace. Okay, cool.
Recipe for success.
You didn't see me in grad school, but did you see me in grad school? I can handle that kind of environment for about 2 years max, and then something like pops off in my head, and I have to run away and go start a party or something. Like,
Okay, we like to end every episode with 3 questions. So the first one is, what are you reading right now?
Nothing.
Oh, that's good.
No, it's not. But okay, wait. What should I be reading right now? What could I be reading right now?
Oh,
what do you want me to read right now?
That I don't like at all. That was recommended to me by a friend. So I'm going to tell you what not to read. It's called, it makes me angry because the person who wrote it is, it's called All Fours. It is written by Miranda July.
Well, no.
What, do you like Miranda July? Do you know her?
She's supposed to be making good things. What did she do?
It is.
Yeah, have you seen
her writing is very good. The writing is very good in the book, but she's 45 in the book and I'm 46. So maybe it's hitting like a little bit close to home. And she becomes 46 in the middle of the book. She's talking about like perimenopause and marriage and family. And she is like talking about it as if it's like the end of the world. Like she's like lost all desirability. Like, whatsoever. She needs to like pick up her like flapping ass and like, it's like, it annoys me so much, especially as somebody in the industry where I'm like, I think that women are beautiful for a very long time. I think that we are as desirable as we like think that we are. And it's just hammering this like message of like, the old woman who like loses all of her like sexuality, and she's married and has a kid, and she falls in love with this. She goes on this road trip, but she doesn't actually go on it. It's this whole thing. She falls in love with this younger guy, and it's supposed to be like her last hurrah before all of her hormones like fall off a cliff.
Okay, I won't read that.
I mean, I know like it's a bit, I like joke all the time that like everything is, I'm very hot. And like, PJ says that they should send like women my age into like, do Antarctic like exploration because I'm so hot all the time. I'm like down there.
Physically.
But I don't think that like my life is over. And the fact that she's like hemming and hawing about like the whole like end of her like being in the world. I don't know. It just,
I mean, we all have feelings like that from time to time. Like my mom just passed away at the very young age of 61.
Yeah.
And I'm 41. So you can't tell me I'm not having feelings that I only have 20 years left on this planet.
Sure. Right.
And I think like we all go through that in our 40s.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it's like, okay, well, what do I got? Do I have 5 years? Do I have 50 years? I don't know.
Right.
So I'm just like, I'm really not thinking about my flabby ass or where my hormones are going. I'm thinking about what am I going to do for the next 10 years?
That's how I am too.
Okay, fair to say she's written her book. You and I have not written our books yet.
That's true. We have not.
So
so maybe if we had like our big accomplishments behind us, I don't know. I'm having this, and maybe it means it's a really good book. I don't know, but I'm having this reaction to it where I'm like, stop it. You're not about to die.
People get annoyed with how she's feeling and change course for themselves.
Yeah. Okay. So anyways, that's that book. What are you listening to?
I am listening to Charlie. It's Brat Summer over here.
It's what?
It's a Brat Summer over here. I am listening to Charlie XCX.
Okay. Is that an album?
Oh my God, I love you so much. Oh,
You have to remember that I don't know anything about pop culture.
I am having a gay pop summer.
Okay.
I'm listening to Charlie XCX and Chapel Roan.
I can't stand Chapel Roan.
Oh!
PJ wants me to like Chapel Roan. My friend Ashley wants me to like Chapel Roan. They've both showed her to me, and I'm like, I think I'm too old for this. I don't get
Have you read the lyrics to Casual yet?
No, should I do that?
Okay. Yeah, you should read the lyrics.
I watched the Tiny Desk concert where her lipstick was on her teeth, and I was like, what is happening?
No. She's a baby drag queen. Don't look at her. Don't look at her. Don't look at her. Just listen.
Okay.
Listen.
It's funny, but I'm such like not a pop person that you ridiculous. The other day I said to PJ,
I was like, when we were coming into this podcast, I was like, it's funny because we're going to be talking about pop music is my special interest.
I'm sorry. No, so I said to PJ, I was like, I don't think I've ever heard a Taylor Swift song. I said this to PJ. I was like, I don't think I've ever heard a Taylor Swift song. And they're like, yes, you have. And I was like, no, I really haven't.
Yeah.
Then, yeah, that's what they said. And then the other day, this song is on. And I said to them, because they've been trying to tell me about Chapel Roan and something else, I can't remember. And I said, I do not like Chapel Roan, thinking that's what we were listening to. And PJ is like, yeah, okay, that's fine, except we're listening to Taylor Swift.
I like to say.
Okay, all right. I had a client the other day too in his 60s, and I was like, oh, what would you like to listen to? And he was like, I really like pop music. And then he put his playlist on of like all these like pop girlies, and he's singing the lyrics. And I'm like, oh my God.
If I were ever your client, it would be a very similar experience.
I mean, we would laugh about it though. I had to like be serious with him, and I was like, oh man, I got to take this very seriously.
I actually like my friendship with you has been one of those like, how did I not realize I was autistic moments? Because I'm obsessed with pop music, and it's so funny because I always talk to you about it, and you're always like, who? And I was like, oh, that's right. You're not following the same things I'm following.
Oh, but I
know Ariana Grande's like life story. Like I know who Sabrina Carpenter is.
Yeah, that's
like,
the other one that PJ has been talking about, because PJ teaches at college. So like they hang out with all the Gen Z students and know like what all the Gen Zers are listening to.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm fully into it. I kind of joke like I should be a radio DJ.
Yeah, you should. Okay, last question.
What do you really do? If I wasn't a porn star, I would be a top 40 DJ for a corporate radio station.
Voice. I bet you could do that well.
Yeah. Next up, we have Chapel Roan, not Taylor Swift.
If Jessie's listening.
This is not Taylor Swift.
Okay, and what are you excited for?
I am so excited to experience San Francisco through the eyes of my 13-year-old siblings who are coming to visit the Bay Area for the first time next week.
Oh, that's fun.
And we get to have all sorts of wholesome fun. And I feel like the list of places we want to go is longer than the time we have.
That's so fun. You're going to take them on a trolley?
Yeah. Oh my God. I have to add that to the list.
Yeah. You're going to go on a ferry to Alcatraz. You got to do all of the
we're going to do things. Well, we can't take a ferry to. Well, we can. We were going to take a ferry to the ferry building, then walk to Fisherman's Wharf to see the sea lions, and then go to Garibaldi Square to get some fresh chocolate.
Yes.
And like whatever from there. Like the most San Francisco thing you could possibly think of. And my question for you is, when are you coming?
I want to come soon. Soon. I don't know. I should come though, because I should add that to my tour schedule is what I should do.
Right. Because I was just thinking maybe we could do like a hustling panel in person.
That would be really fun.
Hustling, not hustling, whatever.
Yeah, that would be great. Okay. And where can people find you?
CourtneyTrouble.com. Okay. It has links to everything.
Perfect. It was so nice to chat with you.
So I miss you so much. It's so good to see your face.
I miss you. Thank you for joining us for another episode of When We're Not Hustling. I'm your host, Jessie Sage. You can find me on Twitter at sapiotextual or visit my website at jessiesage.com. The show was produced by Emily Foster and the music is by Benjamin J. Beninati. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at NotHustlingPod. To support the show and get sneak peeks, please go to patreon.com/sapiotextual. For more information about our show and what we do here, please visit our website at nothustling.com. Signing off. Have a great week.